Good day, folks, and welcome to the Anorak Review Show with our host, the Anorak. Another week means looking at another classic British metal band from the 80s. This time, not so much as heavy, as much as they are glam and blues. Yes, we're talking about Whitesnake. Founded by David Coverdale, a then recent former lead singer of Deep Purple for a while, the name of which came from his debut album back in 1977. The band itself found some footing with some of its first albums in the very tail end of the 70s, with Trouble and Love Hunter, and by the dawn of the 80s, they found a bit more success, mostly across Europe. And by the middle of the decade, they would break through to North America with their 7th album, which we're looking at today. So let's dig into Whitesnake's 1987 album, Whitesnake. Now, there are a few interesting things to note. First off is the title. While it's mostly an eponymous title, it's also often going by the name 1987, the year it came out in, as a way to kind of differentiate it from other albums by Whitesnake. And in some countries, it often goes by the name Serpens albus, which is Latin for white snake, and partially because it's on the emblem. And speaking of the emblem, the cover itself is pretty good, bold and simple. An illustration of the very emblem itself, as well as the new logo for Whitesnake that would go along with them for most, if not the whole rest of their albums thereon. And another thing I want to point out is the track listings. Depending on not only what format you're buying this album, CD, cassette, or vinyls, or LPs, or even what country or region you're in, the track lists often differ in some ways or another. Especially considering the fact how CDs and LPs often have different lengths of maximum and whatnot. Some tracks are either swapped around or just left off entirely, or one song might have a different version on certain releases. So, while the one I have has a somewhat European version of the track listing, plus a USA radio mix of one of the songs, I'm gonna go by the main European CD track listings, since it has all the tracks on it and has it in the proper order. Plus, I'm a Brit, and that means I'm still European in a way, so what can I do about it? So, with that out of the way, let's look at the music itself and see how it holds up after nearly 35 years. We begin the album with Still of the Night, and what a good choice to start this album with. When it comes to songwriting, then guitarist John Sykes co-wrote most of the songs here with David, and his guitarists in this first track, just right off the bat of hell, are brilliant. Almost something it could fit in with Iron Maiden. The drums of Ansley Dunbar and David's vocals really do well in complementing the guitars. David in this really channels his inner Robert Plant, where he sings about hearing the wolf howl, sniffing around doors and hearing a heartbeat, and yet in the light and heat of the day he seems to hang low his head and hide his face from the sun, waiting until the evening time. So, is he a vampire here? Hopefully he's not one of the sparkling twilight kind. And just to let you know in advance, one thing well known about Whitesnake is that a lot of their songs are sexual in nature, or at least are about sex in some way or another, complete with innuendos and double entendres and everything. This track is no exception, about David having a big love drive going on at night time, prowling for a bit of love and all. Then about 2 minutes in, the guitars chill and fade out for a bit as synth choirs enter the scene, bringing us into this strange yet calm and chilling state of mind. Like we've found ourselves in a lit alleyway at the set of some 80s thriller film. And soon after, the harder guitars gradually return, and we're back to the hard rock sound again, going full circle before fading out altogether. It's no wonder it's the longest track of the album, up to about 6 minutes and 40 seconds, and that's one reason why I like this so far. After that is Bad Boys, not to be confused with the reggae song by Inner Circle, which also came out the same year as this, strangely and coincidentally enough. This track immediately cranks the metal from the previous song up to 11. The lyrics here are just as fitting as well, perfectly capturing and embodying that youthful, rebellious lifestyle and attitude about being the black sheep of the family, getting in and out of trouble, dancing till the break of day, etc. When John Sykes plays that guitar solo, just pure energized epicness. This is the kind of song you hear to the imagery of a biker gang driving together down a long, mighty road. This too feels like the kind of song Iron Maiden would make and perform. Bad Boys. What am I gonna do when they come for me? I'm gonna blare out this song to them until they enjoy it. Or assuming they will probably arrest me for potential noise disturbance. Next is Give Me All Your Love, which continues and carries on that kicking rock and roll vibe. This time sounding a bit more similar to Magnum, another 80s rock band I love and recommend. Man, I should really review a Magnum album sometime down the road. Anyways, in terms of lyrical content, this too is about someone wanting love. In this case, wanting love from one particular person, wanting her to give him all her love tonight. Sykes' guitar solo this time around sounds even more screechy and off the charts. Any higher and those strings would probably break from the sheer awesomeness alone. Like with Bad Boys, this is a pretty underrated glam rock song that I would listen to if I was ever in need of high energy and a little bit of excitement, on par with snapping into a Slim Jim. I never tried a Slim Jim. I don't live in America. And that's a food in America, therefore I never tried it. The best equivalent we have here in Britain are pepperonis, which I also like and I would also recommend to people. Another love song is Looking for Love, a 6.5 minute long arena rock ballad. And as the title suggests, this is yet again about unrequited love. But you see, Give Me All Your Love is about giving love, while this is about looking for love. What a total difference right there. However, in all seriousness, the music itself is quite different. More soft rock in nature as opposed to hard rock. This relies more on atmosphere, especially with how it opens, with some distant synths and guitars, and even some magical sounding chimes. David once again gives his all with his vocal performance here, sounding both grand and personal at the same time. That must take some good, if not great, dedication just to get it right, in which I just can't help but admire. Even the guitar solo here is more emotional than energized, which is still just as good as in its own way, perfectly matching the feeling of a need for companionship. This is one of 2 songs that was left out in the North American version, but it was the only one of those that was kept in the UK/European LP copies, that, like the one I have. But I'm still glad anyway regardless. This song can rescue me and the state of my heart any day. Or just the state of my body in general, really. Then we have Crying in the Rain, which sounds like a more tragic and downer version of Singing in the Rain. This is one of 2 re-recorded songs originally from the 1982 album Saints and Singers, the other one of which you'd probably most likely recognise and will get to eventually. Now, both versions I enjoy equally anyway, for being both distinct and very varied in their own styles, yet still familiar and overall following the same formula. The original was much more organic and bluesier, while this is slightly slicker and more modernized. Whatever the version may be, the lyrical content remains mostly, if not entirely, the same, being inspired by a then recent divorce that David was going through at the time. He and old Phil should be getting in line. It seems that after all the efforts and attempts across the past songs in this album, yearning for love, searching for love, or even just waiting for it, all that effort had all become moot and was all for nothing. It's a pretty bittersweet song in that respect, while also still leaving us with a somewhat musically hopeful note that a new chance of love may be found again sometime, especially when we're only like halfway through the album.